does the Prime Minister agree with me that it's time not only for a full independent inquiry into the NHS in Wales, but also an apology from the Leader of the Opposition for his party's record?
I think my honourable friend makes an important point, because in the NHS in Wales, doctors and nurses and hospital staff are working round the clock to deliver good care, but they have been let down by the Welsh politicians in Cardiff who have cut the NHS. And that is why it is the British Medical Association and Labour members of Parliament who've been calling for a public inquiry in Wales. Even before that, what we should have is the OECD want to carry out a comparative study looking at the English NHS and the Welsh NHS. I support them doing that. Does the right honourable gentleman?
Miliband.
Mr. Speaker, last week, 16 leading health organisations representing doctors, nurses and patients warned the Prime Minister that health and social care services in England are now, and I quote, at breaking point, and things cannot go on like this. Why is that happening?
Absolutely no answer to the question of whether there should be a proper inquiry into the Welsh NHS. I will tell him what is happening in the English NHS, for which this government is responsible. 1.3 million more outpatients being treated, 6.6 million more outpatient appointments, 2,500 more nurses, 8,000 more doctors, a record we can be proud of. Why? Because we invested in the NHS in England, they cut the NHS in Wales.
Mr. Speaker, everyone can see what the Prime Minister is doing here. After nearly 5 years in office, he can't defend his record on the NHS in England. Every time he mentions Wales, we know he's running scared on the NHS in England. Now, in England, we have the highest waiting list for 6 years, the longest wait in A&E for 10 years, the cancer treatment target missed for the first time ever, and millions of people can't get to see their GP. Won't he just admit this? The NHS in England is going backwards, isn't it?
Well, let's have an OECD inquiry. I support it. Does he?
Speaker, in case he hadn't realised.
At a very early stage, far too much noise, the public aren't impressed. Let's try to operate up to a certain standard. No, the session has to be run on, the session will be run on. Bother me.
He obviously doesn't realise he's supposed to answer the questions. I asked the questions, the Prime Minister's questions. He couldn't, and the whole country will have noticed, he could not defend what is happening in the English National Health Service for which he is responsible. And why? Because 4 years ago, he told us his top-down reorganisation would improve the NHS. But now we know it's £3 billion down the drain. Will he now admit in public what he's saying in private? His top-down reorganisation has been a total disaster for the NHS.
I'm not only happy to defend our record in the NHS with the extra spending, the extra doctors, the extra nurses, all the extra treatments. I want a comparison between the Labour NHS in Wales being cut, no targets met on cancer since 2008, on A&E since 2008. I want a comparison. So I will allow the OECD to come in and look at the English health service. Let me ask him again, will he let it look at the failures in Wales?